Week 4 of the 2020 college football season and the first week of SEC action is now over. We are headed into week number 5 here this week. And of course, as we always do, we're going to be going over our updated rankings as we move forward to week number 5. And of course, last week we saw the SEC start to play, and there were a lot of crazy games, a lot of crazy upsets as well that we're all going to be going over here in this video once again, along with our rankings. And the Pac-12 did announce this week as well that they would be coming back in November for a 7-game regular season. And so I'm not going to be including the Pac-12 in the rankings here today. Of course, that's still a good month and a half out, so I've decided not to, but I will be in a couple of weeks from now. But Big Ten teams are included because their season is coming up much quicker than the Pac-12 for that matter. Anyway, with that being said, let's look here 1 through 7. Clemson remains at number 1 this week. Of course, they've been at number 1 all of our 5 weeks. And they're sitting at 2-0 right now. They had a bye last week, so they did not play. But Alabama looked pretty good in their win against Missouri. They did allow 19 points, but still, it was a very comfortable win. They basically doubled up Missouri, and they got the win. They're 1-0. And they moved ahead of Ohio State, which Ohio State, of course, hasn't been playing quite yet. Of course, their first game is coming up just in a few weeks. But they're sitting at number 3 right now. They're moving down 1 after week number 4. And, of course, we also have Florida and Georgia to follow that. And both Florida and Georgia, I mean, it's very hard to distinguish who's the better team between both of those two. I mean, Georgia probably had the better win. They beat off Arkansas on the road 37-10. But Georgia started off extremely slow in that game. I mean, Arkansas was leading them for pretty much the entire first half. Only in the second half did they start to pull away. So, I mean, yeah, there was some sloppy action there as well. But same thing with Florida. Florida was down to Ole Miss for a decent part of that game. And then Ole Miss, I mean, they scored 35 on Florida's defense. So both teams between Florida and Georgia do have some concerns, but all around, yeah, it's going to be fun to see them when they're playing each other because that's going to have a huge factor on the SEC this season. But both teams are moving up 2 after week 4. Both teams are also sitting at 1-0. You also got Auburn, who's moving up 6 after their win against Kentucky. I thought they were pretty impressive last week in their game against Kentucky. I mean, Kentucky is a pretty good team, and I thought that they looked really good as well. So that's why they're at number 6. Texas is at 7 after their shootout win to Texas Tech. And they're moving up 4 here. And they probably shouldn't be moving up 4 because, yeah, that was a pretty sloppy win. But still, they're 1-0. They got the win in the end in a classic Big 12 game, being super high scoring. Moving on to your 8 through 14, we got Texas A&M at number 8. They beat off Vanderbilt 17-12. And on their end, I think they should have won by more than that. They only won by 5 there, but it's still a win in the end. So they're moving up 2 this week. We got Penn State and Wisconsin at 9 and 10, and they're moving down 1 apiece. They have not played a game yet, obviously, so they're just kind of on standby there. We got Miami at number 11, and they're jumping up 6 after their win against Florida State. They beat them at 52-10, and I said last week, I mean, I had them at 17 last week, which I'm sure many of you guys probably thought was a bit on the low end for them, which it definitely was. I mean, for them to win like they did last week against Florida State, which is a pretty decent team, yeah, that was a huge win for Miami. They're looking really good right now. I mean, you've got Clemson and Notre Dame, of course, in the ACC right now. But watch out for Miami. That's a team that's kind of sneaky in there right now, and they're looking really good. So Miami is definitely a team I think to watch out for. Number 12 is going to be Notre Dame. Speaking of which, they're sitting at 2-0 right now, and they move up 1 after their bye week. Of course, they were supposed to play Wake Forest yesterday, which ended up not happening because of COVID concerns. But at 13, we've got LSU, and this was a team that lost to Mississippi State yesterday by 10, 34-44. That was just a terrible, terrible game by LSU. I mean, their defense looked horrible. They allowed 625-something yards to KJ Costello. He just was all over them, and that defense looked terrible. And I think, yeah, they got to get this together if they're going to have a good season. I mean, you can't allow KJ Costello to pass 625 yards on you and expect to be a good team. Yeah, just a very terrible, terrible game by LSU. And I mean, that was just a terrible team in general. I mean, Miles Brennan did not play well at all. Yeah, that offense in general just did not look very good. They just could not get in sync at all. And that just kind of shows how big of an impact Joe Burrow had on that team last season. I mean, he was just such a great player. Like, it's really tough to come across a player like that. So, yeah, for LSU, that defense has to play much better if you're going to see a good season out of them. 14 is going to be North Carolina. They had a bye week, and they're staying at the same position at 1-0. 15 through 21, we've got Oklahoma at 15. They dropped down 11 after their loss to Kansas State, which this is the second year in a row that they've lost to Kansas State. Just a terrible loss there, 35-38. And I mean, it looked like they had the game in control at one point. Yeah, Kansas State stormed back and got the win once again by 3. Oklahoma's sitting at 1-1, and that was, Spencer Rattler had a really bad performance against that team as well. I expect him. He had a decent first game, but after the loss to Kansas State, he just did not look very good at all. So that's a little bit concerning there. But at 16, we got UCF. Of course, they beat off East Carolina on the road, 51-28. Another good win for UCF. Watch out for them. They could possibly be a team that could jump up, I think, if they get another win next week. They're sitting at 2-0. And the main reason why I had to move them down is because I had to move a couple of teams up ahead of them. So, no, nothing against UCF. It's just that there are a lot of good teams that were shifted around above them. You got Mississippi State coming into the rankings at 17, and I see in the AP poll, I think they're at 16, so I'm kind of right around the same level. But yeah, of course, they beat off LSU last week, a huge win, 44-34. And considering LSU's expected or was expected to be a huge national contender this season, that is a huge upset in the first game of the season. Watch out for Mississippi State moving forward. They're 1-0 right now. 18 is going to be Tennessee. They beat off South Carolina 31-27, but that was a close game. It looks like South Carolina could have pulled an upset there, but Tennessee's moving down 2 after that win, mainly because Mississippi State, and you got one other team that's now ahead of them. Number 19 is going to be Memphis. They moved down 1. They're 1-0. They did not play any team this week. 20 is going to be Cincinnati. They beat off Army, which Army's a pretty good team, so that was a good win, 24-10. They're sitting at 2-0. Then BYU is a team that's blowing out 2 opponents through 2 games, and of course they blew off Troy last week, 48-7. Pretty good win there. Troy's a decent team, so that was a good win. And then they also beat off, they beat off Navy. That was a team that they played, I think, in the first week, and they beat them off like 55-3. So basically, they're outscoring their opponents like 93-10 right now. So BYU is playing pretty well. Watch out for them moving forward. If they can play a good opponent, and that'd be an interesting game at this point because of how well BYU has played up until this point in the season. 22 through 25, and this was a tough thing to do as far as rankings go. You got Oklahoma State at 22, and I think they deserve to be higher, but I just could not put them any higher than your great American Athletic Conference teams, including BYU. But yeah, West Virginia, of course, they got the win there, 27-13. But Oklahoma State, I just have not been very impressed by this team so far this season. They had a close call to Tulsa, and then they got a win against West Virginia, but it was kind of close. So Oklahoma State, I'm just going to sit them at 22nd still. I don't think that they really deserve to go much higher than that right now. 23 is going to be Minnesota, and they're moving down 3. Same thing with Michigan. They're kind of paired up, kind of similar to how Penn State and Wisconsin are. I'm kind of keeping them on standby for now, but I do want to keep them both in the rankings because I do think that Minnesota and Michigan both deserve to be in here because of how good of teams I expect them to be this season. But then you got Pittsburgh, of course, at 25. They beat off Louisville 23-20. Good win there out of Pittsburgh. However, they're having to move down 1 because Mississippi State entered the rankings ahead of them. Looking at your first 5 out, though, Virginia Tech. I did not want to keep Virginia Tech out of the rankings this week, but I just kind of had to. There are 25 really good teams out there right now, and so yeah, Virginia Tech definitely deserves to be a ranked team, but I just could not put them in there this week. Kansas State I considered putting in, but considering they lost to Arkansas State in week 1, I can't put Kansas State in there right now. Iowa's sitting right there at 28, Baylor's at 29, and then Louisiana's at 30. I just have not been impressed by Louisiana at all. They're undefeated still, so that's good for them, but they've just played a couple of sloppy games. They almost lose to Georgia State, and then yesterday they almost lose to Georgia Southern. You can't be having close calls to those teams and be a ranked team. Like Pittsburgh would blow them out. Like, for example, our 25th ranked team in our rankings this week could probably blow out Georgia Southern and Georgia State straight up. Louisiana, if they're not doing it, they don't deserve to be in the rankings. As for a team that's been dropped out, our one team this week is Virginia Tech. They were at 23, and I had to drop them out once again because I had to enter in Mississippi State along with I just had to put up BYU. BYU's been playing pretty well so far, so I think that they deserve to be a top 20 team. But anyway, with that being said, that wraps up our week college football rankings for week number 5. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below on this. If you enjoyed these rankings, be sure to slap a like on this one and subscribe as well. Really upset the channel. I'd really appreciate that. Once again, though, let me know your thoughts in the comments below. I'd like to hear your thoughts on that. But yeah, thanks again for watching. Stay tuned for more from All Sports Central. I'll see you later.